And why don't we just go down the list and do a roll so it kind of gets everybody recorded. Sandra?
Here.
Robin?
Here.
Monica?
Here.
Sarah will not be here. Mike Brower?
Here.
Mike Kagi? Keith will not join us, and Jason?
Here.
Well, good morning, and happy belated Thanksgiving and Merry almost Christmas. I think it kind of seems like it runs pretty fast anymore. So, today's meeting will probably be done in a little over an hour, so thanks for taking time out of your busy days, and we'll look forward to after the first of the year. I think we'll be getting into some heavy lifting or some productive work. I know that we'll get a report to have a little more funding that came in, and look forward to trying to make a difference in this world that has a lot of challenges when it comes to substance abuse. So thank you again for your time. And with that being said, I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
This is Sandra. I'll second.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Unanimous approval of the minutes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is call on Chris to give us an update from the Attorney General's office.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have just a couple updates. First and foremost, I think we've discussed with the board previously, but I'll give you a final update on Mallinckrodt. As you may recall, Mallinckrodt declared a second bankruptcy, which impacts the amount of money that we will be able to receive from Mallinckrodt. We have received our final payment from the company, which will take our total from the company to about $2.5 million. We are planning on doing a distribution of that fund to the subdivisions starting next year, early next year, likely in January. We are still going to be required to report semi-annually to the settlement administrator in Mallinckrodt or rather the trustee in Mallinckrodt, about any non-opioid abatement expenses. We have not had any non-opioid abatement expenses to report to date, so I don't anticipate we'll have very many to report going forward, but we will have that obligation, even though we will not be receiving any additional payments. Likewise, in other bankruptcy news, you may have seen that the Purdue bankruptcy was before the Supreme Court earlier this week. We will be keeping a close eye on that, and we will let you know once we have any idea whether or not we will receive money out of that bankruptcy. A couple other items just to let you know. We are working on getting the what we were calling the next 5 settlements on file. It's taken a little longer than I'd hoped, but we anticipate getting those resolved over the next month and a half. As part of that settlement, we are working with DECA to get a MOU in place on distribution of naloxone that we're going to receive as part of the Teva settlement through the state naloxone program. I think that's largely the major updates. I will tell the board that we have received some questions from the public. Just the AG's office has received questions from the public about when the next round of grants will be coming. Obviously, that's up to the board on when that decision happens, but I do want to let you all know that there is quite a bit of interest in when the next round would be coming. Finally, the AG's office would like to request, like we did last December, another $100,000 for paying for Nancy's salary, Connie's salary, and for the financial assistance of doing the distribution of funding to the subdivisions, as well as collating annual reports from the subdivisions and that sort of abatement work. Which I believe, Mr. Chair, I did send a draft motion to you for that particular request.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Any questions of Chris on any of the comments that he had to make about the settlements? And then following any comments or questions, would entertain a motion for approval of the distribution of funds for their operations.
Move to approve distribution of the funds.
Monica, second.
Any further discussion of the approval of 100,000 for operations in the Attorney General's office as it has to do with the KFAB? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
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 All opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Thank you. And let's see, Lori, did you join us?
I did, yes.
Okay, good. Welcome. And Gary, I see Gary's on too, so welcome. I didn't know you could declare 2 bankruptcies, but I'll keep that in mind in case I have to go down that road at some time. Hopefully not in this life.
Mr. Chair, I'm not a bankruptcy attorney. It was a bit news to me as well that you could declare 2 bankruptcies on top of each other, but that is what happened in that case.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chris, and thanks for the work that you and your staff do. It's been a real pleasure, I guess, working with you guys, and know that we have a lot more time to spend together, and appreciate your guidance and direction as we go forward. With that being said, we'll turn to, I believe Shauna is going to give us an update on our finances. So we'll open the floor to Shauna.
Thanks, Chair. This is Shanna Zimmer with Sunflower. Making sure you guys can all hear me.
Yep.
Good. Okay, perfect. Just wanted to pop in and provide a quick financial update on the fund balance. Sent a couple files in the packet. The first one that I will direct your attention to is the fund balance summary as of November 30th. You can see there that we've received 2 deposits totaling about $40 million from the Office of the Attorney General. So far this year, we've earned interest in the amount of $804,000. We've paid out grants to Sunflower for our work to date of $219,000. We have issued 2 rounds of payments to the grantees in accordance with the awards that you approved. In October, we sent out $1.3 million. That was the last date of October. We sent out another $100,000 for those that missed the initial deadline to send those payments out. And then we sent the first round of RFP2, those initial payments out of $804,000. So a total of $2.2 million there that you see in your sheet. I'm also tracking the other holds on items you've approved but not yet paid out, and you can see those in the file there. Just a couple tidbits of information regarding the investments. Again, our interest rate is about 4.55%. In October, we earned $133,000 in interest. In November, we earned about $147,000. So interest earnings are looking good. Again, more money to be reinvested. Any questions regarding fund balance information?
Questions for Shannon? Seeing none, you can proceed.
Okay. The second item is the invoice in your packet regarding Q3 expenses incurred on behalf of Sunflower for administrative support. Expenses include direct salaries, benefits, some staff training, supplies, Flux, the grant management system that you all are now familiar with. And then also this time we had the external RFP grant reviewers. One was in late June and the other in August. So we've included those expenses there. So that would be incurred July of 2023 through September for a total of $93,296.68. So Sunflower would like to request a grant for that amount for reimbursement of expenses to support the Kansas Fights Addiction Board. Questions?
Any questions or comments for Shannon? And after we After the comments, then I would entertain a motion for approval of their budget request.
Pat, could Shannon read the dollar amount again? It seems to be different than from the invoice I received.
It should be
Connie.
94,296.68.
Okay, that matches. Thank you.
This is Mike.
Would-
I'd move to approve the invoice as presented by Sunflower.
This is Sandra, I'll second.
Moved by Mike, second by Sandra, approval of the budget request by Sunflower. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Unanimous approval. Thank you for the presentation, Shanna.
Thank you.
Next item is we had a request from the Riley County Corrections. We had approved an award to them, and they made a request to modify their request. And we just thought it would be prudent to let the board know about it, and then we'll seek a motion to approve or not their budget request. So I'll turn it over to Krista if you want to outline their request.
Thanks, Pat. So we met with Robert and Chris to talk about this as well, and so we all landed on that any budget modification that falls outside of the scope of their original proposed project or a new capital allocation that wasn't previously included should come back to the board for approval. And so this budget modification request we got from Riley County Community Corrections does still fall within the scope of their project. However, it's a significant modification to their budget and an allocation to capital that they didn't previously include. And so we wanted to bring that back to you all for approval. So within their request, they're requesting $53,646 to be moved to capital to designate one bed for social detox at their partner location, Pawnee Mental Health Services. They need to convert an existing storage room into an ADA restroom to be able to do so. But this, they had in their budget already costs for transportation to send clients to other facilities in different cities to get social detox. So this is going to eliminate the need for those transportation costs and then also potentially create a more sustainable solution to the issue for that community. And so we thought it still falls within the same scope because it's still social detox and creating a resource in the community that didn't previously exist. They also, so since it's a significant amount, they are pulling from different budget categories, but they've found other sources of funding to support all of those activities. So even though they're pulling funding from different parts, other partners and Riley County have agreed to take on all of those additional expenses. So for example, indirect, they're completely zeroing out their indirect line, and Riley County has agreed to take on those additional expenses. And then they had provider training for MAT providers, and Pawnee Mental Health Services has agreed to take on those expenses. So all of their strategies they proposed, they'll still be able to do, and they've found other funding sources to make sure that they can still do so. So we just wanted to get your approval since it is a little bit more significant and it includes capital, so it's more unique than a typical budget modification.
Thanks, Krista. Any questions or comments? I would support the modifications. Looking at it, I think it's prudent what they're asking for. So if there's no other comments, would look for a motion for approval.
Move to approve their modified request.
Monica, second.
Robin made the motion, Monica seconded. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign. Thank you, Krista, and we'll keep the microphone in front of you and go into the next item is the needs assessment update and grant awards to date, an update on how that's all going. So we'll turn the mic back over to you, Krista.
All right, thanks, Pat. Okay, so we have 56 of our 59 that have completed all of their paperwork. The last 3 are either KU Med or a government entity, so there's just a little bit more processing that needs to take place, but we're in communication with them and they're progressing. I think we're pretty close, but we're at 56 of the 59 that are now currently active and receiving their payment schedule. And we have the majority of which have received their first payments. So 49 of those 56 have received their first payments. And then some of them are on separate payment or reporting schedules because they requested a later start date, or like Mirror is just reimbursement specifically for one of their projects. And so that's why it's 49 of the 56 that have received their first payments. But that's in progress as well. Next round of payments will happen on the 31st of this month. We'll have about 35 that go out on the 31st. And then in January 31st, we have the other set of majority of payments for 22 under prevention primarily. And then others are kind of sprinkled within. With progress reports, the majority of the treatment will be due on March 31st, and then prevention majority will be due on April 30th. We'll also have a couple that come in the end of this month and in February that are on accelerated timelines. So our K-Trax and our KBI grantees requested an accelerated timeline. They didn't think they needed the full time to complete their project, and so they're having their progress reportings also accelerated. And then we have some in May and June for those that have requested a later start date. We have about 4 that will be off schedule there. Any questions about grantees?
Questions or comments for Krista? Very good. Thanks for that update, and continue, please.
All right, I'm going to pass it to Alyssa to give a needs assessment update.
Thank you, Krista. So we are excited to give you guys an update. At the last meeting, Krista gave a really brief one surrounding the number of applicants we have. And so today, I'm here to share that we have selected the University of Kansas Center for Public Partnerships and Research to be the main contractor and to work closely with us to develop and implement the comprehensive needs assessment. Again, all applications we received were very high quality, and all organizations were well qualified. Although we believe that CPPR's approach best aligned with the vision for this project and specifically allowed for the most flexibility, not only in terms of ensuring that we are being able to reach the maximum number of individuals throughout the state and get their input, but also flexibility in terms of we know that the project will not only allow us to look into things that maybe we are aware of a need, but we may be surprised by some things. And so we're really excited by their approach, and that it'll allow us to kind of be able to look into new things we hopefully find. And they also had the most flexibility in terms of collaboration with partners across the state. That was something that we found was really important because we do, while they are the main contractor, we do want to ensure that we are collaborating and working with as many partners as possible. We have begun a meeting with CPPR staff to discuss project logistics and begin planning for moving forward to begin the needs assessment. And so we will continue to keep you updated as we get going. Any questions?
Questions for Alyssa? I'll just make a comment. I know we had several good applicants. I'm thrilled that KU was the eventual chosen one to head up this needs assessment. It'll guide a lot of what we do over the upcoming years, and just being down the street, so to speak. I feel like we'll get the best possible assessment and be able to work from that data that we receive. So look forward to doing that. So thank you for the discernment on choosing them and going through the process.
No problem. Thank you.
Mike, do you have a question?
Yeah, Chair, this is Mike Brower. And Krista, this might be way too far in advance, but do we have any idea on a timeline of when we might have some ideas of recommendations?
Yeah, so our goal is 12 months, so around this time next year, hopefully they're wrapping up. However, within their timeline, they've got different kind of buckets where they plan to have initial reports to us based on topic areas. So I think we'll get regular updates along the way that could probably inform a more expedited process if you all wanted to focus on certain areas where we're getting results initially from. But to finally wrap up the full needs assessment, our goal is 12 months. Of course, we don't know exactly what to expect, so it might end up being longer, we don't know, but that's our goal. And I think we'll have enough information along the way that will help inform you all if you would like.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, is Melissa, is she there in person?
Yep, she's here.
Okay, good. Why don't we take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back and have our presentation from Melissa Rooker. So we'll pause here for 5 minutes. I'd like to welcome everybody back. A minute or so to rejoin us. Well, we'll keep moving on here. We've moved at a brisk pace, which I thought we would. Would like to welcome Melissa Rooker, the Executive Director of the Children's Cabinet, to our committee.
Thank you, Pat. It's a pleasure to be here and appreciate the opportunity to provide an overview of the work that the Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund engages in and give you a snapshot of some of the programs where we see overlap with the focus this committee has on substance abuse prevention and treatment efforts. So the Children's Cabinet, just to give you...
Melissa, let me pause just a minute here. Kind of a chance meeting that Melissa and I got together here 3 or 4 weeks ago and talking about a different project. And during that conversation, realized, and she can tell you more in detail about the Children's Cabinet, but in a sense, they were originated by a settlement years ago, 20-some years ago, I think. And then as we talked further, realized that there potentially could be some overlap and you know, as we look for collaboration from some of our providers, maybe there's a way that we could collaborate in the future. Ed O'Malley, who spoke at our last committee meeting, saw that there could be some potential overlap, and Melissa did too. So that's the impetus to invite Melissa to present today. So I just wanted to get that in, and sorry to interrupt you, Melissa, but please give us an overview, and we're excited and pleased that you're able to take time to join us today.
Thank you so much. So, I will provide the committee with written testimony so you can refer back to some of this information. But as Pat said, the Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund was created, actually Kansas was the first state in the country to create a Children's Trust Fund in 1980. That was in existence when the legislature made choices in 1999 to direct the state annuity from the master tobacco settlement to a new structure that they created in statute called the Kansas Endowment for Youth. And that same statute created the Children's Initiative Fund and the Children's Cabinet itself to manage these monies. So the statute 38-1901 prescribes specific services for the Children's Cabinet, roles and responsibilities. Our job is to assist the governor in implementing a coordinated, comprehensive service delivery system for children and families in Kansas, identify barriers to service and gaps in service that exist because of strict definitions of boundaries between departments and agencies, facilitate interagency and interdepartmental cooperation toward the common goal of serving children and families. Our statute further defines our role as being responsible for investigating and identifying methodologies for combining funds across agency and departmental boundaries, proposing action to achieve coordination of funding and services across those lines, and encouraging and facilitating joint planning and coordination between public and private sectors. We also have statutory responsibility for evaluation and assessment of the efficacy of the programs that we invest our funds in, and we take that very seriously. In fact, the KU Center for Public Partnerships and Research actually provides backbone support to the Children's Cabinet and has conducted a recent comprehensive needs assessment for the early childhood care and education system. So it's fun to hear and really smart choice to bring them on board with your efforts, because as you'll hear today, there is a lot of overlap and alignment in the work we do and the opportunities that exist to really support families that are dealing with this serious issues such as substance abuse and addiction. The cabinet, the statute that created us created a governing board that is made up of 9 voting members, 5 of whom are appointed by the governor, 4 of whom are appointed by legislative leadership. And we have 6 cabinet agencies, 6 ex officio agencies that serve in an advisory capacity. So we have Kansas Department for Health and Environment, the Kansas Department for Children and Families, the Kansas Department of Education, Kansas Board of Regents, Kansas Department of Corrections, and the judicial branch is represented by Justice Keenan Wall. So we meet bi-monthly. We too have funds that get transferred from the annuity every year that Kansas deposits into the Kansas Endowment for Youth. There is a transfer each year in the state budget that is known as the Children's Initiative Fund. About 30 million or so of our funding in this, what we call the CIF, for Children's Initiative Fund, passes through as transfers to other state agencies to support programming, but the balance of it, about $22 million, is managed by our cabinet governing board through a series of grants that we make. I mentioned that we have done a comprehensive needs assessment. All of the resources, you'll have links in the testimony that I share with you. We have posted everything online. We have the needs assessment done in 2019, 2 updates done during the COVID pandemic, and then in early 24, probably springtime 24, we will have a renewed comprehensive needs assessment statewide that we add to the mix to update things. Out of that work, we created a 5-year strategic plan for early childhood. This work has been funded through a federal grant program known as the Preschool Development Grant Birth to 5. The acronym for that is PDG. That grant really has the system in mind. It is not meant to fund new slots for children. It's meant to help us as a state agency figure out how to deliver services better, streamline the experience for enrollment and qualification for programs, update systems, and that sort of thing. We have used that work to really help improve the management of data across the agencies that are partnered in that grant. So it is DCF, KDHE, KSDE, and the Children's Cabinet that partner on the PDG work, with the Cabinet serving as the state lead on the grant funding. I will have a handout for you we published some information in our annual report at the end of last year that holds true. We did a data evaluation of the efficacy, the role that our investments play in helping families stay together, in preventing removal of children into foster care. And what we found is that when parents receive services like home visiting, like parent education programs, parents as teachers, things like that, when they have access to the ability to strengthen parenting skills, to have services for their children, when children are screened early and receive the interventions that they need, it means that there's 35% less likelihood that children will actually be removed from those families after they start receiving our services. We looked at common reasons for removal, and as of state fiscal year 2022, the leading cause of removal from the home was substance abuse issues. 37% of the children removed to foster care were because of substance abuse issues in the home. We see 16% are due to physical abuse of children. 16% is just simple lack of supervision. 13% is categorized as physical neglect, and 11% the caretaker's inability to cope. So connecting parents to resources, connecting people to the treatment and prevention programs, the education programs, counseling, all of those things help keep our families together and keep children safe. So when we meet the needs of the whole family, we are doing right by our children. Early childhood services have been proven to serve as a protective factor against removal in foster care. And put another way, 96% of the children receiving our grant-funded services remained in their home rather than being removed into foster care. So you'll get that information. I wanted to give you an idea of the type of services that we fund that overlap with your subject matter interest, substance abuse and treatment and prevention. So we work collaboratively around the state with local partners, trying to help reimagine child and family well-being and setting a proactive course for thriving families in our state. As the state lead for a federal grant program known as the Community-Based Child Abuse Prevention Grant, we really focus with that funding on primary prevention practices. That is not a large sum of money. It's a little bit over $1 million. I think this year it's 1.2 million. So we don't have a lot of funding to grant in that program, but where we grant it, they are doing amazing work. So all of our CBCAP programs target strategies that will increase the likelihood of a child having a safe, stable, nurturing relationship within their families and communities. So some examples would be we give a grant to the Kansas Children's Service League Parent-Child Assistance Program, which is also funded by federal funding known as Family First Prevention Services that is administered by DCF. This program targets early identification of substance-using parents and provides intensive in-home support to families with the goal of engaging the parent in substance use assessment and treatment services, provide recovery support, increase positive parent-child interactions, improve child well-being, and prevent child maltreatment. We've also, through KCSL, we fund the Wichita Crisis Nursery, which provides respite and emergency short-term care for families experiencing a crisis. The program provides child care for families in unexpected situations, such as the need for a parent to participate in substance use treatment. This program fills a need when substance use treatment programs serving whole families are at capacity or are simply unavailable. We are funding 2 pilot programs that provide preventive legal services, one in Ford County and one in Shawnee County, to provide free, quality legal services focused on strengthening families and preventing a gap in legal services that turn into a crisis. Legal services provided by Kansas Legal Services and the Kansas Holistic Defenders focus on supporting families with challenges related to housing and eviction, accessing benefits, and other critical social determinants of health. So in other words, it's helping people intervene before their license is revoked and they can't drive to work, or before they get evicted and end up with the drama and trauma and crisis that losing your housing can create, etc. There's a wide range of reasons why these services, we think, help prevent crisis from happening and help families hold on and get themselves on the right track. We also fund a program that one of your board members will be very familiar with. The Family Resource Center Response Advocate Program in Southeast Kansas aims to reduce the risk of a crisis, support families who've suffered a disruption that threatens family stability, and to equip families with resiliency skills. Services include home visiting, parent education, comprehensive case management and referrals to community-based services. Basically, the response advocates that are funded with our grant funding embed with the police department when there is a crisis situation brewing in a family, when somebody calls the police. But it's a way for the police to channel response to social workers and counselors, and the kind of response that is helpful and necessary when the police are there to arrest someone for a crime or stop a crime from happening, but sometimes the crisis is not in that realm. It doesn't fall under the police purview. So the response advocates help build a relationship with that family that is outside that law enforcement arena and get them connected to the help they need. We are engaged currently in developing a child and family well-being dashboard that will demonstrate state-level and community-level strengths and challenges and the impact of investing in primary prevention and well-being initiatives. We're using a pandemic supplemental award to the CBCAP program to develop the dashboard. It will have an interactive map that explores data such as Kansans' access to basic needs, social determinants of health, and protective factors. We will we'll use a well-being index at the county and state levels, and as the name indicates, it will include guidance alongside the data to support communities in the state towards strengthening areas of well-being. The narrative will provide information on how each county fares in terms of well-being from a strengths-based perspective. So we want to showcase what communities are doing well, what is going right, and not focus, as we so often do, on the problems and challenges and gaps. We know, like, there's plenty of effort. Your needs assessment will also, highlight gaps and challenges. We want this to be focused on well-being so that we can learn from communities that are innovative, that are doing things well, and what might be best practices that can roll out in other communities around the state. We have been in development. It's a pretty complex process to gather the data. We are using existing publicly available data. We're not conducting the kind of data collection efforts that are anything other than a wealth of publicly available resources. This should be public by next summer, by summer of '24. Kansas is also, I will feature the work of one of our partner agencies, Department for Children and Families. We're one of the first states in the country to activate, to implement the Family First Prevention Service Act funding of 2019, which is, we have $13 million in federal funding to implement evidence-based programs designed to prevent the need for foster care. So it's another avenue to divert families from the crisis that leads to children being removed from home. There are 4 primary areas that Family First Prevention Service grants are funding currently: parent skill building, kinship navigation, mental health services, and substance use services. This is not our program to oversee, so I have limited information with me today, but what I do have is some findings that substance use programs received 275 referrals between October 1st of 2019 and June 30th, 2023. Of those families, 82% of children who've reached 12 months from the time of service referral remained together at home without the need for foster care. Current funded programs include the Sobriety Treatment and Recovery Teams, or START, which is a DECA program, Parent-Child Assistance Program, PCAP, which is KCSL's and one of the programs we are also funding, the Strengthening Families Program at KVC, and Seeking Safety at St. Francis Ministries. Statewide, we offer a warm line, 1-800-CHILDREN, which is administered by KCSL and supported with our preschool development grant funding and CBCAP funding at the moment. It will likely also continue to receive funding and support from our team of agencies because we all depend on the operations that 1-800-CHILDREN provides. It's a comprehensive resource directory. It's using a tool called Find Help. And we have modernized a bit, so it originally was literally a 1-800 telephone number, but we now have a website and we have a mobile app. So people have multiple ways to access information, and it is just that. It's a place for someone to call for help, to ask a question when they don't know what to do, and it can offer basic information about, is it, you know, they like to say it's any there's no dumb question. You can call if you're a new parent and you don't know if it's normal for your child to do X and it's after hours and you can't call your pediatrician. 1-800-CHILDREN exists to provide that kind of support, or if you are looking for resources, it's a resource guide. DCF integrated 1-800-CHILDREN into the Kansas Protection and Reporting Center as an option for callers to seek support for families when reports are not necessary. Additionally, after calls to the Protection and Reporting Center, all callers from mobile devices will, so if you call KPRC, you'll get a text with a link to 1-800-CHILDREN so that you know that exists. For Kansas to be the best place to raise a child, we need to work across sectors to develop a healthy ecosystem where all can thrive. As Kansas Fights Addiction conducts your comprehensive statewide needs assessment on substance use disorders, the Children's Cabinet stands ready to be a partner to support you in your work. We look forward to seeing the results of your study and using them to help inform our own approaches for the early childhood care and education system, and are happy to serve as a resource as you engage in your work. So at this point, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Melissa. I appreciate all that information, and certainly stimulated lots of thoughts on how we can work together. I'll turn it over to the committee. Questions for Melissa from the committee?
Mr. Chair, this is Sandra. Melissa, thanks for that information. You know, as you were talking, one of the things that I keep thinking about as we work on some collaborations is how we support grantees in not having to report multiple different types of data and outcomes. And I'll just use the START model as an example. That's something I helped start when I was at DECA. And the Family First grants have outcomes and data to report. There's outcome and data to report to DCF and others. And so I'm just curious, as we think about potential collaboration, how we align outcomes and align data points so that folks aren't spending a lot of grant money administratively trying to report to a bunch of different people.
I love that question and appreciate the spirit of it. We agree that data collection can be a huge imposition, but it's also very necessary. So at the Children's Cabinet, we have created a system, we call it the Common Measures Initiative. So we are asking all of our grantees to report on using a toolkit that they don't all have to use every evaluation tool in the toolkit, but they have to participate in the Common Measures Initiative as a condition of our funding. We put all of that data in a HIPAA and FERPA and state data privacy compliant database that the acronym is DAISY. This is something that the KU Center for Public Partnerships and Research developed. So I think there's some synergy and some opportunity to think very strategically about the measurements that your board needs to see to gauge the outcomes and the efficacy of your investments, where there's alignment, where there's overlap, where we can get strategic in developing measurement and assessment tools that are common, that become a single way to collect data is the ideal, right? We have a new grant using a special fund from the American Rescue Plan it's called the Child Care Capacity Accelerator. It's designed to, we finally got ARPA dollars that allowed us to pay for construction of new or major renovations of existing buildings for child care centers. We braided together funding from DCF that is for major startup operations from a completely different source of, it's American Rescue Plan, but a different bucket of money. We got a grant from a private foundation, and we used some of our preschool development grant. So that's 4 sources of funding blended into one grant award program. Each has its own criteria for compliance and assessment and reporting requirements. Each has a different calendar for reporting. We have tried to minimize the burden on our grantees by creating a template, and we awarded the grants in summer, and we will be rolling out an updated format for reporting because we've learned lessons this fall. But to keep the criteria for each fund and comply with everything we're responsible for doing, but ask our grantees, instead of saying, here's 4 different reports you have to fill out because you have 4 different types of funding, we are creating one reporting template on a data management platform that will help us. It's not exactly automated, but it should simplify the process for both the grantees and for our team to sort out what information needs to be reported where. So we've basically blended all of the criteria we need to collect into one template that they are asked to fill out, and then we will have it sectioned by the funding source. It's feasible, is what I'm saying, to get together, sit down and say, all right, everybody wants to know certain demographic information. Everybody wants to know what type of program a family is receiving. I would also point out that we are engaged in, we have an early childhood data trust. Member agencies are DCF, KDHE, KSDE, the Children's Cabinet, and then we're bringing the Department of Corrections on board. It is an entity that has a legal framework in place that sets the parameters for the type of projects and the overall vision for the sharing of data. And then for each study that we want to conduct, we create a data sharing agreement, so it is specific to the type of data. So we are not pooling the data in one big data set, but when this agency has this set of data and we have this set of data, we have a protocol for merging the data and bringing it together. So we would be happy to share more information about our data trust if it is specific to early childhood. I know you are dealing with a different age population in large part, but I think there's room to advise on how we have done this and the philosophy behind it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Monica.
Yes.
Hi, Melissa. I'd like for the group, I've been involved with the cabinet as a grantee from the very beginning, and then more recently on the cabinet. I'd like for this particular group to consider taking advantage of lessons learned from the Children's Cabinet, and 3 really stick out to me. Number 1 is the data trust. It doesn't fix all the problems, Sandra, that you mentioned. I mean, as a grantee, when you're filling out the same information for 4 funders, that's time you're not with kids and families. So I really think we should look at that, and I believe that we made a really good move today by hiring the KU group and with the leadership of Dr. Jackie Counts I think we can, build upon what we find out in the needs assessment and maybe move into that data trust. Because what that looks like is when we want to look big picture, it basically lets different agencies of state government get out of its own way, right? And so I think between Krista's knowledge on this subject and the folks from KU, I think we could learn from that. I also really want to point out what she said about why kids are in out of home placement. I think you said 30-some% have to do with substance or inability to care for the kid in the home. From being on the grantee perspective, we all know this, but we've got nowhere to refer to, right? There's no place to get treatment. And it's all about that right time, right place, right moment, right mindset, right? So I feel like if we could work alongside them and make sure that the cabinet grantees know about what we just did in communities so that they can say, oh my gosh, I'm in Arcadia, and points if you know where that is. I'm in Arcadia, and Crawford County just funded 20 new slots, right? I feel like that is easy enough to do, both ways on that. And then the last thing I want to say is about the 1-800-Children. So the preschool development grant's kind of a misnomer, but what it allowed us to do in early childhood was much like we talked about in the first couple meetings of this board. When we said, well, KDADS is over here, private sector is over here, nonprofit treatments are over here, state government's over here. It gave us a reason and funds to coordinate that collaboration. And that collaboration became stronger because we had meaningful work to do, right? So I feel like the time, now that we're a year in, it might be right to say, okay, let's have all the state agencies get in and look at this piece. The 1-800-Children piece was part of that meaningful work. And with people putting their money together. And I'm telling you that for the for the first time ever, the ability to dial that number or download that app and say, I'm in Arcadia and I need food, and it shows up, So I think close collaboration with that resource too is really key. Basically, we can build upon the good work that's already been done. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Monica. And everything you said, I think, points to the reason that we do want to collaborate as much as we can. We have funding, and but Monica, Melissa pointed out too, is that there's a lot of overlap just with her cabinet, but as we know, there's much other overlap, and there's these barriers to get through and climb over, but I think we can figure it out, and just kind of excites me to be at the beginning level to get some of this stuff done. Other questions for Melissa?
I have one more, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Sure.
This is for Krista, and I'm sorry if I should know the answer to this. Have we already established the reporting system for the folks that we just granted funds to?
Yeah, it's pretty basic since this one's just a first year short-term approach. It's basic, how many served, types of services provided, reporting on their goals that they put within their application. So unique goals, and then some kind of basic indicators for them to report out on their own, and then asking about successes and challenges. Is really basic at this point. I'm hoping that when we move into more strategic grant making after the needs assessment and longer term grants, there'll be more of an concentrated effort, I guess, on what that actually should look like. But yeah, we do for basic needs.
Is that going into a portal, or is that coming in as individual reports?
It all goes into Flux. So the progress report is built into Flux, and so we have like text boxes for the numbers, so we can pull reports on those indicators as well.
And that's excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And that's when Melissa's referring to common measures. We didn't have that forever in the Children's Cabinet funding. And so it, just took a lot of back end work to be able to say, oh, there were 12 of these and 45 of those. So look, we're already learning from the successes of the cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Melissa. I just want to point out that the Children's Cabinet issues a weekly email newsletter known as All In for Kansas Kids. We are always happy to share information. So if you have a press release or information about the grant awards that Kansas Fights Addiction have given, we would be happy to publish that in our newsletter, a little write-up. We would just ask for some assistance with what you want said. And then we offer, we conduct a monthly webinar that's for information purposes. That is another avenue for coming into our world and sharing information about the work that KFA is engaged in. So I would invite you to let me know if you want to get scheduled into the mix for a presentation.
Sure,
Pat,
thank
I'll add
you.
on to that. CPPR has built in a similar structure of newsletters and webinars within the needs assessment too. So it might look a little similar for our needs assessment.
Thank you. Other questions for Melissa? Well, thank you very much for taking time, and just the statistic that Monica referenced, the 37%, I believe it was, as a reason for children removal, just that in itself, if we can make a difference. I've always felt like our committee is kind of the ultimate goal is to save lives and save families. So to work with your cabinet and the trust fund certainly seems like it's a natural thing to do. We're obviously being in a public sector where we welcome accountability, but ways that we can be less burdensome and less costly to where we can deploy the funds to these families, to the alcoholics and addicts that in turn affect mental health to a large degree, will be things that we look forward to working with you, Melissa, and your group and other groups. So again, thank you for taking the time to present today. And my thought is that as we look at other entities that we can collaborate with, that maybe we'll just in the springtime, maybe bring them all together and we can spend time kind of batting around ways that we can work together and some of these other finer points of how do we measure and give assessment without being too burdensome. So very good presentation today, Melissa, and thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Just a couple more items. We've been meeting on the second Friday of the month and looking to 2024. It seems like that has worked. There's been a couple of Fridays that we've changed for one reason or another, and everybody's been okay with that. So if everyone is okay with keeping the second Fridays of the month for meetings, we will continue. But if there's any other discussion or thoughts on a better time, knowing that our meetings could change, it might be a holiday or some other reason to change, but that seems to work pretty good in 2023. Okay, well, we'll keep with the second Friday then for now. So our next meeting will be on January the 12th, and that will be, for lack of a better term, kind of a law enforcement meeting. I know we are looking to have a presentation by Perry, and I can't, maybe Krista, you can help me with the acronyms. I can't remember on HITA and Perry, and also the drug courts. Remind me of those two acronyms.
So the Midwest HIDA is the high intensity drug trafficking areas. That's that one. And then the PARI is the police assisted recovery initiative. So just different initiatives related to law enforcement and how they help with SUDs and recovery. And so she's a national speaker, and then Todd is our Midwest HIDA representative, and he'll speak as well. And we're working on some speakers related to drug courts in Kansas as well.
And Mr. Chair, this is Chris. Just one other thing that we need to have on the radar for both the January and February meeting is it may be hard to believe that we're already a year beyond from the last annual report, but the annual report is due March 1st. So the January and February meeting should have at least some component in it discussing what will go into the annual report to the legislature come March 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Pat, this is Sandra. Connie, can you or someone send a recurring meeting invite for 2024 so we can get those on our calendars?
I can send you the dates, but the IT department is the one that sends those out, and they don't send them out, but like a week ahead of time.
For just a placeholder meeting, we can get you just some kind of placeholder on your calendar. It'll be sent to your KFAB email address.
That would be really helpful. Thank you, guys.
Any other comments before we close here? Any questions? Once again, thank you for your time, the committee and staff. Melissa, if you're still there, thank you for taking time to come over and visit with us today. We look forward to working with you. Want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and look forward to continuing to do good work and I guess basically saving lives and saving families. That's a pretty cool goal to have. So thank you. And with that, we will adjourn.